Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. Happy Monday, all you mentees. Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at the Daredevil Shadowland Omnibus from Marvel Comics. We are looking at the new printing of this book. So, join me. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advance copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on July 23rd or 24th, depending on where you get your books. And what we are looking at here is the direct market cover. This is the one that's supplied by Billy Tan. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover. And that is the one that's going to be available everywhere. That one is supplied by John Cassaday. And they do have a different spine design, the direct market and the standard edition. And the standard edition, new standard edition printing also has a different picture for the spine than the original printing, which we'll look at here in a little bit. But everything underneath the dust jacket is the same. So let's take a closer look at this book here. We have Daredevil, Shadowland right there again. Billy Tan being the artist on Shadowland. Marvel Omnibus, Daredevil, Shadowland, this picture of Elektra there. And then one of their own. What does that mean? And then parental advisory, because it gets dark in this book. Retail price being $125. Now, before I look at this book and compare it to the original printing, I'm sure I'm going to be asked, even though I've done a Daredevil reading order. Oh my gosh, that one's about 4 years old now. Where does this fit into the reading order of Daredevil and Omnibus format? Well, right here. Right after the Ed Brubaker era and right before the Mark Waid era. As a matter of fact, this is really the Andy Diggle era because Andy Diggle took over the run after Ed Brubaker. Actually, let's compare it to the original printing. This one printed at the Donnelly printer, this one printed at the Mega Print. And yes, there is no Andy Diggle oversized hardcover. As a matter of fact, the book seats a different picture than the new printing. As a matter of fact, the actual stories by Andy Diggle have been collected in standard sized hardcovers and of course trade paperbacks, but there was never an oversized hardcover. The only way you can get Andy Diggle's run of Daredevil is through this omnibus in oversized format. And then the backs of the books, parental advisory, $125, and the new retail is $125 as well. Looks like they're using the same font there, and a little bit smaller over here. But that is the same cover by John Cassaday for the new printing. And then underneath the dust jacket is the exact same image, except it's zoomed in a little bit. So you get this image right here from actual Shadowland. Who's fighting who? What the heck is going on? And what's up with Daredevil's new costume? Well, I am going to be talking a little bit about that. And then, of course, doing a comparison to the original printing. So, actually, let's go ahead and crack this omnibus open. Talk about the stories found in here, what's collected, the build, and, of course, all the extras. I said I was going to open it up, but before I do that, I completely forgot to look at the flaps here. You have Matt Murdock, Daredevil, and Lost. What the hell does that even mean? And then the bio and the creators. It's the exact same flaps that they used over here. One thing I noticed about this particular omnibus, and it's happened from time to time, is that the dust jacket's a little bit thicker, and I mean just a little bit, than the original printing here. So, not sure if that matters to people or not, but it is. Just wanted to point that out. Alright, let's look at the end sheets here. Daredevil Shadowland, what is collected. And the other thing, of course, I'm going to be talking about is the mapping, because I know when it comes to event omnis, people want to know how it's supposed to be read, and everybody's a little bit different. But this is really the way it's kind of collected in here, with Dark Reign, the list, Daredevil kicking it off, and you have the main Daredevil series, Shadowland. However, it is intertwined. The Daredevil issues are intertwined in between Shadowland, which is perfect. The mini-series over here, and then who wrote some of the mini-series. So, I said that this is an Andy Diggle book. But there's so many other writers. You have people like Anthony Johnson and Jason Henderson, Jeff Parker, Rob Williams, and Zeb Wells, Dan Slott, Fred Van Lente, and, of course, Andy Diggle. So we kick it off with this one shot right here. So what is collected in here? By the way, this recaps what happened in the Ed Brubaker era, which I will talk a little bit about. But first, let's talk about what's collected in here. So this collects Dark Reign, the List, Daredevil one shot, Daredevil 501 to 512, Shadowland 1 through 5, Shadowland Elektra, Shadowland Bullseye, Shadowland Ghost Rider, Shadowland Spider-Man, Shadowland After the Fall, Shadowland Moon Knight 1 through 3, Shadowland Blood on the Streets 1 through 4, Shadowland Daughters of the Dragon 1 through 3, Shadowland Power Man 1 through 4, Thunderbolts 148 and 149, and Daredevil Reborn 1 through 4. The book has 1,112 pages and retails for $125. Alright, before I talk about the stories collected in here, before I give you the pitch, I do have to warn you, this entire omnibus spoils the ending of Ed Brubaker's run on Daredevil. So if you haven't read that, maybe wait to read this afterwards. Now, if you don't care about spoilers, or if you already know what happens, because this is the age of the internet, you can look at like minute videos explaining what is Shadowland. Well, then yeah, sure, let's watch the whole video. But I will leave timestamps to let you know when I'm talking about the extras, and of course the comparison for the people that don't want to go into this with any spoilers. Alright, you've been warned. Some spoilers, minor spoilers, not really going into the heavy details as to how. At the end of Ed Brubaker's run, by the way, there's a quick little recap here that kind of tells you what happens. At the end of Ed Brubaker's run, Daredevil is left with the Hand. He's left to be in charge of the Hand. Something that he doesn't want, something that he's fought, and it does play the biggest part in all of this, because the Hand, as you all know, has been a big part of the Marvel Universe for a long time. They're a ninja clan that were created by Frank Miller during his run on Daredevil. There's different sectors of the Hand. Some of them worship this demon known as the Beast, and even though there's different factions, they do have different leaders too, and one that kind of oversees everything, like a supreme leader. I think it's called the Jonin. And they have been a thorn at Daredevil's side for a long time. Now, for some reason, you can find out for yourself, during the Ed Brubaker era, he is left in charge of the Hand by Master Izo. Now, there is a couple of things that he has to do in order for him to fully take over the Hand. Now, during Andy Diggle's run, we kick it off with the List. Dark Reign, the List takes place during this really interesting era of the Marvel Universe, when Norman Osborn was kind of elevated to the status of the hero of the 616 universe because of the things that happened in Secret Invasion. And that all happened during the New Avengers run on Brian Michael Bendis' era of New Avengers. So, long story short, people worship him, and he becomes like a hero in a lot of people's eyes. And he recruits a bunch of villains to become these new Avengers, these dark Avengers. One of them being Bullseye, taking over the role of Hawkeye. And he sends Bullseye in to go and take care of Daredevil. So something horrible happens during this big fight where 107, I think, exactly 107 protesters died in this building during this fight. And that triggers Matt into completely owning the role of leader of the Hand. Because if he thinks that, because this is the way he thinks, he's like, okay, if the world thinks that Norman Osborn is some kind of hero, and he's sending out killers like Bullseye to go and kill innocent people, and nobody raises an eyebrow, something is so messed up with the world that it needs to be fixed. So he owns that leadership role. And he's not alone. He's got White Tiger with him, and Black Tarantula here, and they'll play a big part of kind of like his supporting cast while he leads the Hand. Now, before we start off on Shadowland, and I'll explain a little bit as to what Shadowland is, we have Roberto de la Torre doing some phenomenal artwork, and I completely forgot that during this time, it's also Marco Cacchetto doing some fill-in art. So you're going to see some like early Cacchetto art through here. looking a little bit different than his art, like in The Punisher by Greg Rucka, or even in his Daredevil run with Chip Zdarsky. Having control of the hand is not as easy as Matt thought it would be. Because remember what I said, there's different factions of the hand, and not everybody agrees with Matt being the new leader. Meanwhile, he has to deal with Norman Osborn and the ramifications of that big fight with Bullseye. And he's starting to go down a dark path. And his friends notice this. Eventually, this whole path leaves him in a different type of world. So he ends up going to Japan. And in Japan is where he really becomes the leader of the hand. And kind of tells them, okay, look, the hand is a weapon. It can be used for good, and you guys have been using it the wrong way. I think it's time that we take it back and change things, and we start by changing things back home. So that leads into Shadowland. So he takes all of this inspiration, this is some Kaketo artwork, by the way, from going to Japan, and he builds a temple in, this is crazy, in Hell's Kitchen. And that's what Shadowland is. Like, he builds these Japanese temples in Hell's Kitchen, and he kind of makes it his domain. Like, this is where my city is. It is protected by Daredevil in the hand, and anybody that opposes it is an enemy. So, when Shadowland starts, it's after the Siege event. And I love that Marvel Comics is so connected, right? Like, that is the beauty to me of a connected universe. It's like, oh, wait. Norman Osborn was loved, and now by the time Shadowland starts, he's not loved? Well, you can find out exactly what happened in the Siege crossover, if you haven't read it yet. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but yeah, Norman Osborn and his Dark Avengers are no longer in charge. As a matter of fact, that's what kicks off Shadowland, is Bullseye wanting to go and kill Matt Murdock, because she's just super obsessed with him. So the Avengers are actually talking about Daredevil, and maybe he's misusing the power of the hand and what they should do should they get involved. So what's really interesting about this is that there's this huge fight now between Daredevil and Bullseye. And this is where he gets a new costume, and you start seeing an edgier and darker side to Daredevil. And I know that sounds redundant and ridiculous because we've seen black costumes before. I love those 90s DG Chichester era. Chichester. Never mind. I'm not even going to go down that path. Chichester. I heard him pronounce his name. Anyway, what was I saying? We've seen him do this before, but we've never really seen him fully take control of the hand and what he's capable of doing with a bunch of just, well, I guess cannon fodder, for lack of a better term. Now, the heroes immediately take notice as to what's happening. Why is Daredevil getting darker? So some of them don't side with him. And remember what I said, that he said, lays it in plain English, that anybody that opposes his Hell's Kitchen Shadowland and his hand is an automatic enemy, including some of his other friends, like Luke Cage and Iron Fist, and Colleen Wigg, and Misty Knight, and Shang-Chi, and characters like that. So really at his side are the Ninja, the Hand, and of course, White Tiger and Black Tarantula. His supporting cast does play an important part in this, and I don't want to spoil exactly how Foggy plays a part in this. I do love that Dakota North is back in here, just because she's such an obscure character, and I love those comics back in the 80s. And she was brought in because of Ed Brubaker's run, but so she is still kept through here. She does get a storyline wrapped up. Very nice. Becky's still part of this. And then, of course, Elektra gets involved when she finds out exactly what's going on with Matt. What exactly is driving Matt? And remember what I said? The issues of Daredevil are intertwined in between Shadowland, mapped beautifully, perfectly. So Shadowland is this 2010 crossover where we finally have some street-level characters fighting each other. We've seen, cosmic crossovers. We've seen the mutant crossovers. And it seems like, gods are fighting heroes. Now it's like more, let's bring it back down to earth a little bit and make this street-level event. And that's exactly what this is. So Power Man gets involved. We do have the introduction of a new Power Man. And that happens in the very first issue. Well, he's kind of introduced in a I guess in a retcon way, that he is one of the survivors of the explosion here that was caused by Bullseye, and that is Victor Alvar, and that's Victor Alvarez, who will become the new Power Man. Now alliances are formed, and there's betrayal in Shadowland, and how exactly do the characters end up redeeming themselves, if you will, once they go down this dark path. But that's all I will say about Shadowland. Now, I mentioned that Shadowland and Daredevil are mapped wonderfully. So, what about the rest of the miniseries? What's going on with the rest of the miniseries? So, after issues 511 of Daredevil and Shadowland 5, this is where you start seeing the one-shots and miniseries. This is the one that features Elektra and shows what she's doing. There's the whole Bullseye storyline that I can't really talk about because it's a little bit of a spoiler. And then we have things like the Moon Knight miniseries, which is a really interesting story because it feels like this event was put together by a bunch of editors and they were like, hey, we're writing this Daredevil comic event. So what you need to do is write the story you were going to tell in your own comic and make it a Daredevil Shadowland crossover. And that's both the the weakness and the strength of events. No matter what it is, it's always been the case. I remember Peter David talking about how he hated writing crossover events, but he loved them because they sold his books. He was talking about the case of, I think it was when he was writing Supergirl, and of course when he was writing X Factor. He hated writing events, like crossover events with the main books. It just didn't make any sense to him. But he also realized the necessity because the books would sell. So the same case was here. Like, we have this Moon Knight story because it's still Greg Hurwitz writing the story of Moon Knight that features profile and it features some character development for actual Moon Knight and maybe one of his siblings. So you do have things like that in here. You have the Ghost Rider story in here. You have Mr. Negative's fight against Spider-Man and Shang-Chi in the one-shot. And you have Blood on the Streets right here, which features the characters of like the Shroud and a couple of other lesser known characters like Paladin. So, my point is that if you're expecting the books, the miniseries, and the one-shots to be in between Shadowland and Daredevil, they're not. They're all in the back. And some people like that, and some people are like, no, I want to read this in the order that it should be read. And for an event like this, it's very difficult to say when these stories take place, really. It kind of takes away when you're reading, like, the Daughters of the Shadow here, in between issues 1 and 2 of Shadowland, to see what Colleen Wigg and her legacy is all about. Which is really cool. Actually, I kind of dig the whole Colleen Wigg legacy about the nail. It's this long dead part of the hand. It was a group of all women swordsmen, and she finds out that her mother were and the rest of the nail were assassinated by the hand's enemies. So Daredevil makes her the new leader of the nail. So she's there with like Black Lotus and Macro and Yuki and Cherry Blossoms. So it's an interesting story. It's just how do I put this? It's just, it doesn't really fit into the whole theme of Shadowland. And there's a lot of those through here. This is the introduction of Power Man, the new Power Man, as I was talking about, that goes into the he starts training under Danny Rand. Now there's a little bit of twist as to who he is and how he is might be related to the character of Luke Cage. Lady Bullseye does play an awesome part through here, and there are a lot of other characters that appear through here from Daredevil's life. Now, after all of the miniseries and one-shots, like Thunderbolts and all that, I didn't even talk about that, I forgot. Thunderbolts get involved. This is during the time when Luke Cage was in charge of Thunderbolts. So, of course, he heads into Hell's Kitchen to try to get his old friend out of this madness. So this is where you're going to find the aftermath. So you have Daredevil 512 here, talking about the aftermath of what happened to Daredevil and the consequences of the decisions that were made. And then you have the one shot After the Fall, which deals with the rest of the characters after Shadowland. And Then there was a miniseries called Daredevil Reborn. It's a 4-issue miniseries, and it tells the story of what happened to Daredevil and Matt Murdock after the fall, after Shadowland, and leads directly into Mark Waid's run. And that's really all I want to say about this, so let's look and welcome everybody back that did not want any spoilers at the extra. So we have some variant covers, and I'm sure as I was flipping through here, you noticed that some of the variant covers are on the opposite side of the standard edition covers. I'm not going to look through all of them, just some of them. There's interviews here with Andy Diggle, the creation of the new costume. Didn't even talk about the Punisher story in here. The creation of the new Power Man, and a list of Marvel's best street-level team-ups. This is pretty cool. It's like a list of what the editors think are the best Marvel team-ups. The handbook right there, the case files, featuring some of the characters, if you're not familiar with them, like the Daughters of the Dragon. The saga of Power Man and Iron Fist, giving you a quick recap as to who these characters are. So I'm glad this stuff is back here. And then you have the covers, the concept designs. Yeah, this is the characters I was talking about earlier. Good, I said her name right. For some reason I thought, wait, is it Mako or Macro? And the script right here. So you do have a script, and this is the Daredevil Reborn script, the first issue. And your end sheets. So let's look at the binding here. 1,112 pages. This is what the eye looks like. Again, printed at the Mega Print. So we've got some thick, glossy paper. And the way the book lays over, with some minimal gutter loss right there. And that's due to that eye. Now I want to do a quick comparison to the original printing. We have the original printing over here and the new printing over to the right. And let's look at the end sheets. Getting a little more crimson over here. And Daredevil Shadowland title page. And this right here, which is the credits to each of these single issues that are collected in here. And then, of course, the very first issue. Now, wanted to talk about the paper stock. Because the paper stock actually seems thicker than the original printing. And that's happened before. It's not like this is the first time it's happened. That's why whenever I do these overviews, I try to be as thorough as possible for people that think immediately, oh, it's a new printing, it's got crap paper, it's got bad binding. It's really a case by case. And this one, the case is that this is actually thicker than the paper stock they used by the Donnelly printer. So let's look at, this is perfect. Because this shows both a spread page and some light, well actually this is white so you can see if there's bleed through. And there's very minimal bleed through happening over here. It's a little more prominent over in the original printing, and that's due to the paper stock. The way the book lays over, you do have minimal gutter loss. You have less gutter loss over here in the original printing, as is the case of Daredevil's left foot here, whereas over here you have to hold it down to see the whole left foot. It's still, like I mentioned, very minimal gutter loss, but it is there. I did want to point that out. So let's look at the way it lays over towards the back. So a little bit of gutter loss here, and a little bit over here on the new print. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. Don't forget to check out our sponsors. BD Cosmos, the Canadian leader in graphic novels. They have a physical storefront in Montreal, Quebec, and their website, bdcosmos.com, offers 25% off your order of over $99 or more, and free shipping everywhere in Canada for every order of $200 or more.
Their shipping care is exceptional. Your books will stay cozy through the rough Canadian weather and arrive to you in near mint condition.
After checkout, let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way, and you'll be added to the monthly $25 gift card raffle. Entries are valid for new and returning customers.
Don't be afraid to call or email them. Ask them questions. Their staff is always happy to help guide you towards the right purchase. Visit their website, bdcosmos.com, for more. BD Cosmos, with rewards and raffles taking care of customers in Canada. Eh?
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this book. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking this up, if you already had the original printing, if you are getting this because you missed it the first time around, and you needed to complete your Daredevil in Omnibus format. And if you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.